So how's everybody doing? As you guys know, I'm always cooking. Mock speaks. Let's talk about it. Now, you guys know I've been doing a lot of cell research and just biology in general. So I wanted to discuss something really briefly. I want to talk about the second law of thermodynamics and our relationships. I'll say it again. The second law of thermodynamics and as it pertains to our relationships with our spouses, girlfriends, boyfriends, or just generally, just in general, how it relate in relation how it relates to our relations with each other, namely our significant others in our lives, and the importance of guarding against it more so than anything, whether it's a partnership, business venture, anything you're doing that involves your fellow person, right? How the laws of the second law of thermodynamics, namely the second. I mean, there's several laws, but I want to focus on the second. And I'm gonna make this really quick, but I'll keep it as simple as possible. The second law states that a closed system tends towards entropy. And I'm gonna make this very, very basic. I'm gonna keep it as basic and as simple as possible, so that we can get a real takeaway. Okay, and that second law, pretty much states that the universe, the world, everything, the community, whatever, the universe has a natural tendency towards entropy. The word entropy means disorder, total annihilation, destruction, chaos, chaotic. These are if you look up entropy and look up the synonyms, synonyms really give you a variety of other words that mean the same thing. And you'll see some of the synonyms are like destruction, chaotic, disorder, disorderly, unstable, instability, destruction. I think I said that. Chaos. I think I said that. Upheaval, tumultuous. All these different words, and they all mean the same thing. Just again, disorder, chaos, and destruction. So it says that the second law of thermodynamics talks about how the universe, the chemical processes, molecular processes, biochemical processes, everything ultimately tends towards entropy. Now, what I want to put out there for us is that knowing that we, as molecules or as cells that have been developed, because that's what we are. We're molecules at our final morphological state. Morphological state meaning our cells have determined itself, has uh, expressed itself, and the expressions are what's called our phenotype. Our phenotype is the outward observances or the outward appearances of our genes. So your eyes, your nose, your hair color, your lips, your height, your weight, everything that can visibly be seen is considered the phenotype. And if we understand that we are governed by the laws of the universe, you and I, as 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 species that belong to the animal kingdom, we are governed by the behavior of the universe. We're literally governed by it. So there's no what we call accidents or just things that we can't explain. Another word we call these things are phenomenons. Phenomenons are anything that we can't really explain. They're remarkable. They're exceptional things that goes beyond our thinking. 'Cause we're bounded by limitations of our intellect, right? 'Cause our development within the limitations of humanity. We're developed within the limitations of humanity, meaning we haven't gone into our godhood or our God state. So we're still in this state. And I talked about water and ice and, the different states that water can exist in. It could be a solid, it can be a liquid, it could be a gas. We're in human state, right? We haven't developed or evolutionized to our God state yet, right? And so being that we're still in the corporal, right? Corporal, which is bodily human form, we're restricted and limited by humanity. Our divinity is limited by humanity, our humanity, because we're in a solid form. We still exist in solid. and there are rules and regulations that govern the solid state that we're in. And one of those rules that I want to talk about and that I mentioned is entropy, the law of thermodynamics. And what I really want to say is that we if we're mindful of the law, then we can. If you're not mindful of the law, then you become a victim of the law, whether it's a society as a whole, a community, a national, international, locally, domestically. If you're not aware of the law, you're more susceptible to be victimized by this law, because this law is very, very subtle, but very true and very factual, right? Very eventual. When you first meet your boy, when you first met your girlfriend, right? They got what's called the honeymoon stage, right? Where everything is law, you're in la land. But then you notice eventually you fall out of la land, and then you're into, oh gosh, I can't stand him. Oh gosh, I can't stand her. And we go into this. This is called the entropic state, right? This is what I call this, the entropic state, because the first state is the honeymoon, and then you fall into the entropic, which is entropy starting to take root. Because the law of entropy states that, if here's a perfect example of entropy. If you clean your room right now and you left your room clean for 30 days, 40 days, 60 days, and you never go into your room, and 60 days later you go into your room is going to be messy. Well, you might ask, how is that? No one's ever went in there, and I've had the door locked. What do you mean? Well, naturally dust, right? Dust is going to build on its own, right? Naturally, your room will start to acquire and accumulate dust. Therefore, your room is naturally becoming disorderly, right? It was clean. You dusted down. You left everything clean. You dusted, spick and span. And when you came back, all of a sudden, there's an accumulation of dust, a buildup of dust. So that's an example of entropy, right? Another example of entropy is if you scrambled an egg and you left the egg scrambled in the pot, right? You'll never come back and find that egg unscrambled, right? That's the laws of entropy. Like, you can't get order out of disorder. That's another way of looking at entropy. If something is messed up, like a scrambled egg, it's not going to unscramble itself. If a room is made a mess, it's not going to clean itself, right? But it will naturally mess itself, if I can say that, right? The room will naturally become a mess on its own. And I gave you an example. Excuse me. In terms of the dust that will accumulate. So that's pretty much what entropy is. That's pretty much how entropy works. So when you meet someone and you're in the honeymoon stage, and that honeymoon stage could last depending on how strong the chemistry is, because remember, we're biochemical creatures. So when you meet someone, your chemicals are already interacting with that person, and you're starting to either chemically become connected or chemically becoming non-connected or not connected, right? Your chemicals start to actually to what's called chemistry. We call it chemistry, where they start to actually interact with each other on a magnetic field level. So before you even say anything, you're already interacting with each other on a chemical level. And either your chemicals are either going to connect and you have what's called chemistry, or they're not going to connect and you have a dissonance, right? Where there's no harmony, right? This disharmony. So it's important that we understand that once you meet, entropy begins immediately. The entropic state begins immediately. And it's a natural phenomenon, a natural occurrence. I can tell you what are the reasons and what's behind it, what causes it. But believe me, we'll be here all day. So I'll try to keep it short and just get to the meat and the matter, the meat and potatoes. And it's important, though, that we understand. So naturally, the universe tends to entropy. So naturally, when you're with your loved ones, your family, whatever, there is always going to be an epentropic entity or epentropic energy that is there to naturally bring disorder and chaos into your life. Your finances, right? Entropy will eat your finances up. Entropy in the financial sense will be disorderly in terms of your credit score, in terms of just balancing and budgeting your checkbook, maintaining your bills, making sure everything is on time. You'll see entropy at play there as well if you're not on top of it. So understanding that there's a built-in, hardwired state of deterioration where things naturally deteriorate. or naturally regress, which is all entropy, the law of thermodynamics, understanding that there is that's built into our DNA, so to speak, what we can do to overcome it, right, is to make sure, one, that you're aware of it, right? Because, I remember as a kid growing up, I used to watch G.I. Joe. And at the end of the cartoon, he used to say, G.I. Joe, knowing is half the battle. And I always remember that. I'm a grown 40-year-old man. I still remember that. Knowing is half the battle, right? So the first half of the battle is just being aware of that second law and how it governs us, whether we recognize it or not. Recognizing it, knowing is half the battle. Second is to counter it, right? You can counter it by actively making sure, if you, again, so that entropy don't eat your relationships alive. Value it, value the relationships, right? Or assess whether you value it or not, and then deal with it accordingly. But if it's a personal relationship, like a wife, a husband, a girlfriend, a boyfriend, whatever, something personal that you value it by being actively engaged, right? And making sure that the chemical processes of that relationship are being excited, being put into an excited state. Because something is interesting too. This is not entropy, this is not thermodynamics, but it's still within the realms of this science that all atoms, right, naturally settle in lower energy states. I'll say it again. All of our atoms naturally settle in lower energy states. And that's in terms of the electromagnetic spectrum, which is the wavelengths that govern us as well. The lower energy states would be infrared, which is below red. Red is a low energy state. Infra means below. So infrared is even below that. That's where we naturally go as frequency beings, naturally. You don't have to try. Simple explanation or illustration is this. Imagine a stream and the fish. I'm sure you've seen it on TV or the Discovery Channel. The fish, when they're swimming upstream, they're jumping out of the water and they're jumping out of the water. They're jumping, and then the bear comes and catches some of them. That sucks, right? They're trying to swim. Poor guys are trying to make it upstream, fighting hard. Then the bear stands there and grabs them when they jump out. But that's life, right? The bear has to eat. They have to swim upstream. If they don't jump out of the water, they never make it up. But if they jump out, they take a risk of getting eaten. What are you going to do about that, right? As a salmon, you just got to live with it. That's, if you don't jump out, you don't get up the stream. And if you do jump out, you could get eaten by the bear. It's a cycle of life. What are you going to do? If a fish don't open his mouth, he won't get caught, but also he won't eat either, right? You see how life is? So anywho, the example I was trying to give you though is that the salmon has to jump out of the water to go up the stream. If he's not if you're dead, you don't have to try to go upstream, right? If the fish is dead, it doesn't have to try. It just naturally is going to flow with the current. It's just going to go with the current with gravity. It's going to go down. So it takes life and energy to actually swim and go up. So that illustrates what I'm trying to explain to you, that you have to put energy into taking ourselves out of that natural state, or that natural low energy or low frequency state of infrared. Because again, the universe, naturally, we all settle and reside in infrared. This is why most of the time people are negative, right? If you've been on this planet long enough, I'm 40 years old, I've been here long enough. Most people, 9 out of 10 times you meet people, they usually are in just a low state, even if they have things going good for them, right? They could have money, they could have good careers, family, but yet they're taking all kind of pills for depression and battling all kind of internal stuff. So that explains that, though, when you understand the science behind why. So when you know why, you know how to move in this world. You know how to move strategically, right? With as less friction as possible, right? You're going to have friction. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it, but you just learn how you just move with a little bit more grace. You know what I mean? You're just a little bit more graceful in your movements. You dig? So anywho, what I'm saying is, we naturally reside in the infrared state as atoms. Our molecules naturally does this. So these are laws, again, of the universe that we can't escape, right? It's inevitable, right? So understanding these things are just, like I said, they're just little gems, nuggets to help you along the way. Because we all have our struggles. All of humanity struggle and all of humanity hurts. And if we can just take a little bit of information to get us through one day, because like the song say, one day at a time, right? So hopefully you got something out of this. Till next time, y'all know what I'm doing. I'm getting back to cooking my books.